I went to a meeting last night on the millage that's coming up for our Parks and Rec. I would encourage everybody to be in favor of that.
That's just a renewal?
You will hear
That's a
more.
renewal?
It's a renewal, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yep.
Okay, that's exciting.
You'll hear more of that in the coming months.
Tonight's the meeting for,
Oh, the second ward master plan meeting
yes,
is tonight and at 6:30 at the Booth Center. Please come, it's very interesting. You can go to jacksonmasterplan.org and see what we did at the last one.
so what will they do at this meeting?
And what makes it so interesting?
They do a lot of brainstorming and you'll have a map of the ward basically at your table and say, what do you want to see? What are we missing in this community?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this will be a map of the second ward, which is a pretty interesting ward. It's got a lot of businesses in it.
It's making a lot of noise.
It's got a lot of businesses in it, and a good variety of different types. So we have our manufacturing
Mhm.
down off of High Street, and then you have Allegiance Health is in Ward 2. Our Amtrak station is in Ward 2. The river, got a good hunk of the river in Ward 2. The largest ward geographically.
Sheridan?
No, that's Ward 5.
Is it? Okay.
And the Sheridan
Sure,
doesn't
you
exist.
talking about the old hotel that was there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I remember it.
I don't.
Well, you taught it.
Okay, go down.
So-
Oh, is that gone now?
Whatever. You know, I've got this new Fitbit Flex, which is making me accountable for how many steps I walk every day. And
Oh.
so I walked to the doctor's office from our office down to Allegiance, and on my way back, I took a detour and went by where the Riverwalk Hotel was, and it's nicely filled in with concrete, and it's got a nice wrought iron fence. It'd be a beautiful spot for an outdoor dining place for the summer. Put some umbrellas
No,
up.
put it there for the winter.
Shut up.
Perfect outdoor dining.
No bickering on this show.
Oh, really? I thought this
That
was a reality
just
radio
trying to add a
show.
little humor here.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but anyhow, I think that would be a great location for outdoor restaurant.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so what's the real estate topic for today? You had one, you want to talk about oil and gas, you want to finish the conversation on easements last week, you want to talk about appraisals.
Where did we end up?
I'm trying to remember, we were talking about cities' rights on easements, things like that.
Consumers' Energy's rights on
Consumer
easements.
energy rights with respect to utilities, cable companies.
I'm
right,
getting
with
some
respect to
tree
utilities.
calls right now.
Yeah.
And the ones that the consumers isn't taking down, there apparently are a few that property owners want down.
You know,
They're gonna fall down.
You know, from a lawyer's perspective, in talking about easements, you gotta talk about two kinds of easements. Easement in gross, which is a utility easement. An easement in gross only has a property which is burdened by the easement. In other words, a utility company is benefited by it and individual homeowners, but there's no, how do I say this? Okay, don't giggle over that.
I would
What
say
I'm saying-
something, but I won't.
Well,
I had
I-
a joke in my head, but I'm not gonna say it.
Well, what I'm saying, I don't mean to sound too much like a lawyer here, but you have two kinds of easements. One is an easement in gross, which is like a utility easement, a roadway easement. It's an easement that benefits a person or an entity rather than another property, versus what most people think of as an easement, which is an easement, for example, across your property for a driveway to service my property. So there's a burdened property and a benefited property. The benefited property is called the dominant parcel, and the other is called the servient parcel. But a good example in Jackson that you have of easements are joint driveway easements, which are
We have a lot of those, especially in the northeast
you
part
have
of
tons
town.
of joint easements and joint driveways, and you have tons of disputes between adjoining property owners who get into battles over what they can and cannot do with joint driveways. And it presents a problem in terms of getting a mortgage. When you go to sell your property, if you have a joint driveway with your neighbor, so many of these properties don't have what's called a joint driveway agreement. And so the lender says, we're not going to write the mortgage unless you reach an agreement with your neighbor for a joint driveway agreement or a joint driveway easement. And you go to your neighbor, and if you haven't been good neighbors to each other, good luck getting. that
Although maybe
particular
that's
agreement.
an opportunity for the neighbor that doesn't get along with the other to get it in writing to have it their way. Usually you see the dispute because a car is constantly parked in the
Sure,
driveway.
parked in the driveway, or they, somebody who's got a driveway on the other side, they don't need the joint driveway, but they still have it by virtue of what's in their deed. In other words, there are reciprocal easements, excuse me, for the joint driveway. And so they're using a driveway on the other side, so what they do is they not only park cars in what they consider to be their property, they start planting shrubs, they might extend their deck over, etc., blocking off in one fashion or another the easement rights of the adjoining property.
Or blocking the joint driveway when there's a roof being replaced.
Let's not go down that path, okay? So let's just stick with this. But the difficulty is there are tons of older properties that have joint driveways, there's no formal agreement in place, and they get into the dispute. And without an agreement, in resolving the dispute, each party has the right to use of the entire driveway, and it's reasonable use of the entire driveway. But people just don't seem to get it, and they get into a dispute with a neighbor, and all of a sudden you have all of these arguments between the two, trying to figure out who can do what to whom. And because hiring a lawyer to go to court to resolve it is expensive, you're sort of stuck sometimes. So you just want to be careful if you're buying a property, if it's got a joint driveway, to have a
What
joint
about
driveway
adjoining
agreement.
walls? Such as a garage wall. We have an adjoining garage wall. We now own the property that it adjoins, but before we owned it, our garage on 3rd Street has a shared wall with the house on West Washington.
Yeah, but a shared wall, what you've got is, often there isn't an agreement in place. However, the common law says that you have a duty to support the wall next to you. You can't take down the common wall unless you can assure that the other half of the common wall does not collapse. You have a duty of what's called lateral support. So, and that is a good example. That's an excellent example of reciprocal easements from each party. I've got an easement for, in essence, support of my common wall. So there are occasionally agreements for common wall or party walls, but not often. So you got to be careful. Same thing's true if you're excavating. You have a duty of what's called lateral support. If you're doing an excavation next to your neighbor's property, that neighbor has a right for you to support his land from collapsing into your excavation. There's an interesting little side note on that, and that is the common law says that you have a duty to support only the land but not the building, so that then an issue arises under the common law, whether it was the weight of the building that caused the land to collapse or whether it was the excavation by the neighbor. And again, we're getting a little esoteric here, but that's changed. And now,
Well,
now
you
in
can take
Michigan,
that-
you're in order to get a permit to do that excavating, you're going to need to assure that the person's building on the adjoining property is not going to collapse into your excavation.
Or change the flow of water.
Well, that's what we
Just-
were talking about last week. We
Yeah.
were talking about flowage rights, et cetera. That's different from easement rights. That's just the surface water common law rights. But when you have this, when you're doing the excavation, there's something called the right of lateral support and also something called the right of subjacent support. Maybe next week when we talk about oil and gas or the week thereafter, if you're doing subterranean excavation, you have a duty to support, and you only have an easement or a right to extract minerals without affecting the surface rights. You have a duty to support the land above you, called the right of subjacent support.
I looked at a house that hopefully will be on the market, and there's an outlot next to it. And on the outlet lot, in the winter, they store their pontoon boats.
They being who?
Neighbors.
Other neighbors?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right next to this property.
All right. By what right are they putting
I don't
their
know. It's
their
an
stuff
outlot. Define
Yeah,
an
but
outlot for me.
What's an outlet?
Outlot is simply a vacant lot which is attached to somebody else's property, or it doesn't have to be an outlot on a plot. Is simply designated as, for example, outlot A or outlot B. It's not designated for actual construction. Excuse me, or it doesn't have to be.
Could be too small for construction, maybe?
And usually it's a different configuration. You see outlots as triangular pieces at the
That's
end.
what this
of-
is.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's
It's
not,
not at the
not
end,
a
though.
buildable, it doesn't have to be at the end. It
Okay.
could be somewhere within the subdivision. It's just configured so that it's not necessarily a buildable lot, although it could be.
Right.
But often outlots are not buildable. They might exist in a subdivision and they're owned by somebody. They're either owned by the original proprietor of the plat, or they've been conveyed by the proprietor of the plat to someone. So what you do is you do a title search on it to find out who actually owns the outlot, and then that person has the right to stop other people from using the outlot. Although you gotta remember, there is a legal doctrine called an easement by prescription, and I might, if I go across that property long enough and I use it for certain purposes, I
Right,
might
that's
have
what I would
acquired
think
it.
would be happening in this situation.
That's
But I'll have to
possible.
do my research. I don't know yet. I'm just,
Is the outlot being sold as part of the property?
No,
Or are you
uh-uh.
selling property where that property owner has been using the outlot to store like docks and other
Nope.
summertime stuff? So what's the issue?
it's just an outlot where the neighbors all put their boat on
Yeah, but I
it
mean,
in the
who
winter.
cares about it? I mean, in other words, why, does your client care about it?
I haven't talked to him yet.
Okay?
I just looked at the house, got access to it, have not met the client.
The client being the seller or?
Correct.
Okay, the seller, okay. Yeah, I mean, the thing you wanna find out is the seller been putting their boat and their dock, et cetera, on the outlot? And are they purporting to sell that along with the
Yeah, I
lot
don't think
itself?
so. I
Is
don't
it
think
there?
that's-
Do they own the outlot?
I don't think so.
No.
It's
Pretty
just-
sure because I know where the stakes are for their lot.
Just property that's been there
It's just-
vacant and everybody's been using it because
Correct.
nobody's been objecting to it.
That's correct.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, if nobody objects to it, if the landowner doesn't object to it for 15 years, they might have acquired a right to continue the use.
But I would have to go to court, wouldn't I? So if I'm putting my
Who's
boat
they?
there, if I'm putting my boat there, I would have to go to court
If
to.
if you've been putting it there for over 15 years and the legal title holder shows up, now there's a court battle between the
But
legal
who
title
initiates it? The legal,
holder.
whoever won't move?
Well,
Whoever's decided that. Again,
excuse me.
so I ask you to move, you're putting your boat there and I'm telling
Okay, you
you.
come to me and you say, listen, we'll do a little role playing. You come to me, I've been parking my boat there, you find out that you
I'm gonna
inherited
send
this
you a
outlot.
letter and say, you need to stop putting your boat there. I own this property.
Okay, my response is go suck an egg. That's a legal term of art, by
Right.
the way, yeah.
Then I
Of
have
course,
to call my
Well-
attorney.
so you call, or what you do is you put up a fence around the triangular lot once my boat is off of there.
Okay.
Or in the middle of the night, you go and you get your trailer hitch and you haul the boat off into the street and you put your fence up and they find out in the morning that their trailer's out there. You just better make sure that you're right, because if you're wrong, now you've interfered with my possessory right.
Well, what
because
would I
I've
be
been
right
15
about? That it's my property?
Well, you're right.
I'm certain
Well,
I know
you're
it's
right
my
that-
property.
No, you're certain that you have legal title. What you're not certain about is whether or not I have acquired some easement by prescription or some title by adverse possession. All parking a boat on it wouldn't give me title by adverse possession. But perhaps by parking a boat on it for 15 years with a trailer, et cetera, and putting the dock, I might have acquired some easement right by prescription. And if that's true, and you took my boat off of your property and you fenced it in, then you're in the wrong. So the best thing you can do is, I shudder to say this, hire a lawyer and actually start a lawsuit to get the court to order them to stop using
So
my
let's say
property.
they all take, there's 10 people who are putting their boats on there, that's a random number. And all 10 people take their boat off of this property, put them in the water, and the minute all the boats are gone, I put up my fence. And they don't know it until fall comes and they go to do their storage again.
Yeah, and that's
Same-
actually not a bad tactic, because that one, you're not using self-help, which might result in a disturbance of the peace, a breach of the peace. Because if you started towing boats off of there, somebody's gonna come out with a shotgun or a crowbar or something.
Nobody
and
in
you're gonna
Jackson
start fighting.
acts that way.
Yeah, okay, so, at any rate, so you wait until the spring when they all take their boats off, now you fence it in as legal title holder. I like that tack much better. Now the burden's gonna be on them to come to court and try and establish they have a right, which is gonna be difficult, by the way. I mean, the requirements for an easement.
Well,
by
how could they if
prescription-
they didn't, if she owned the property?
Well, no, there's a doctrine called easement by prescription, where if the legal title holder doesn't show enough interest in their property to stop somebody else from using it.
They can lose
For
it?
15 years, they can lose title by virtue of the doctrine called adverse possession, which is open, notorious possession, physical possession of the property, hostile to the owner under a claim of right for a period of 15 years. And I can actually acquire title by adverse possession. On the other hand, parking a boat there.
So it has to be
storing
15
it.
years?
15 years is the statutory period in Michigan.
For both easement by.
For both easement by prescription
And by, and
and by
adverse.
adverse possession, right. And the use is, parking a boat there for the winter time, court could conceivably find that to be an easement by prescription, not adverse possession, because it's not complete physical possession, I don't think.
Does lack of paying for it make any difference or not?
Lack of paying for it actually is one of the factors for it. If you're paying for it, then it's a license, and you'll never acquire an easement by prescription.
Same thing if I constantly hunt on the same property, do I get an easement by prescription?
You could conceivably, although that's a little more speculative. There is a decision in Michigan that talks about hunting on property, but they've got a hunting cabin on it, and they use it only during the hunting season.
And real quick, it doesn't matter if the property has changed hands or not?
It does matter sometimes if the property's changed hands, or if the person using it has changed hands. Then you've got a doctrine called tacking. Now we're going a little bit farther into the
Okay.
thing. So,
Well-
and again, I hate to talk like a lawyer, but
Well,
these are
how
legal
else could you
doctrines.
talk because you are a
I
lawyer?
could talk like a normal
I mean, I hear it all the
I
time.
could talk like a normal human being on occasion.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm anxious to hear that.
yeah, me too.
Okay, well, a couple things. I'm listing a house today. I will not give the address yet.
Why?
Next week.
Oh,
Maybe next week.
okay.
I'm not sure when we're actually going to start advertising it. But
Do you have a dearth of homes?
No, she has a plethora.
Oh, plethora?
anyhow, this home is in.
She is absolutely surfeit with.
No.
homes. Yes, yes.
This property is at Western Schools.
Yes.
3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, hardwood floors. Just a really cute house with 3.5 car detached garage. Sits on an acre of land. So if you want to be first in line to see it, call me.
Running water?
It's in tip-top shape,
Okay.
and has a porch and a deck, and
Beautiful.
it is a really cute house. Then don't forget about the master plan meeting tonight and
6:30, right?
6:30 at the
Okay.
Booze Center.
That's on what street?
Leroy? No, Edgewood.
Gilbert.
Gilbert and
Gilbert. Gilbert for our French-speaking audience.
Oh yeah,
Like
for the
Colbert?
Colbert.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on, but you get the best access, I think, is off of Edgewood. It's Ganson,
Ganson,
Edgewood, and
Ed-
Gilbert,
yeah.
and East Michigan Avenue are the streets that surround it.
Plenty of parking there.
Plenty of parking, and very important that people, you don't have to live in the city to come. And if you can't make that one, come to one of the other ones.
There's a bunch of them coming up.
Bunch.
780
3800.
Thinking Real Estate.